Hey, it's Dr. D-Flo. Welcome to part 2 of my KEGerator build. Just as a refresher, in part 1 we worked on the thermoelectric cooling system and cutting into the barrel. Let's go ahead and get started.
Dr. D-Flo.
Now that we have access to inside the keg, we can attach the beer tower with 4 screws. After we drill these holes, we also need to drill a bigger hole for the beer line. Normally, if you see a keg outside of a bar, people will be pumping up and down on a beer tap to introduce pressure to evacuate the beer from the keg. But with the barrel, we don't have that much room for pumping up and down, and we really don't want to open the door because that will introduce hot air into our system. So we're going to use a CO2 tank which will sit inside the KEGerator, which will provide the pressure needed to force the beer out of the keg and through our beer tower. So the first thing we're going to do is connect the gas line to the beer tap. So here's the gas, CO2. Here's the tap which connects to the keg, here's the gas line, and here's the regulator. I've attached the regulator to the cylinder. The regulator will make sure that the gas leaving the cylinder is not too high of a pressure. We're aiming for 10 to 12 psi. Next, I'm going to attach the beer tower line to the top of the beer tap. We're now going to insert the tap into the keg. There's a ball bearing in the keg preventing the beer from leaving. When the tap is engaged, it will push that ball bearing, allowing the beer to flow through the beer tap line to the beer tower. You turn clockwise until it stops, then you pull down. And that's it. Now that the tap is engaged, we're going to open up the gas cylinder. I'm not sure what the pressure is going to be because I haven't played around with the regulator yet. And we're sitting at about 15 psi. Which is too high. So the problem is you have to open up the cylinder in order to adjust the regulator. So we'll open it up, and you can see it immediately goes down to 10. And now we're at 12 psi. So we should have some beer flowing through our beer line. Generally, the first pour is pretty foamy, so we'll see what we got. Nothing but foam. After a couple more cycles, it'll be just beer. So how do you achieve the perfect pour? For most people, a cold beer with a reasonable amount of foam will be the perfect beer. We have the cold part covered, so how do we control the amount of foam that tops our liquid gold? There's actually a lot of science behind it, but first, terminology. The frothy foam is known as beer head, and it not only affects the presentation, but also plays a role in aroma and the way your taste buds interact with the beer. Gas, CO2 in our case, and nitrogen for nitro beers is the source of the foam's activity. However, your Coke is a carbonated beverage, but it does not foam like beer. Beer's dense foam includes hydrophobic proteins originally from the grain used to brew the beer. By nature, these proteins do not want to be in the beer, so when a CO2 bubble forms, these proteins will hitch a ride to the surface. I found a paper that modeled the air-water interaction of a barley protein to understand beer foam stability and formation. I wasn't kidding. There's a lot of science behind this. Have you ever noticed how beer foam differs from beer to beer? This is partly because of the presence or absence of isoalpha acids. These acids are present in hops and increase the stability of the foam. Therefore, IPAs will have a more rigid and clingy beer head over a lager. With the KEGerator, we can't control the components of the beer, but we can manipulate the pressure supplied by the CO2 tank. As stated previously, 10 to 12 psi is a good pressure to start at, but we will need to fine-tune this pressure based off temperature and elevation. As the keg warms up, CO2 solubility in beer decreases. Therefore, a lower PSI is needed to achieve the same beer head created at a lower temperature. This is why a stable, low temperature is important. The beer tower is often forgotten as a source of irregular temperature. A warm beer tower will cause the CO2 to be released from solution right before pouring. My beer tower came insulated, but there are commercial beer tower coolers for better results. Finally, the glass can play a role in beer head. Samuel Adams, in particular, likes to think they have created the perfect glass to complement their beer. The main feature of their glass is a laser-etched bottom. In short, laser etching creates a rougher surface that aids in the nucleation or release of CO2 from the beer to renew the beer head after pouring. Laser-etched glasses will release the CO2 stored in the beer more quickly than non-etched glasses. I hope that you learned a thing or two about the perfect pour. Now let's get back to the build. Still a lot of foam, but the keg's getting warm, which is affecting the CO2 solubility. So hopefully once we get the keg into the kegerator and chilling, we'll see less foam. You guys may notice that there's a lot of moisture, and that's from me spilling beer and from the beer tower dripping. So what we need to do is install a drip tray, which we will do with my router. Thanks for watching part 2 of my KEGerator build. In the next and final video, we will do some of the finishing touches, including more insulation, before analyzing the final product. As always, any feedback is greatly appreciated. My name's Dr. D-Flo. See you guys later.